Guys, what is going on? Today we're gonna be breaking down exactly how to run an esports Twitter account. And to do this, we're gonna be looking at one of the best examples in the industry of an account that does this really, really well. And specifically, we're gonna go over 3 strategies this account uses to dominate on Twitter so you can actually take them and apply them in your own Twitter growth strategy, whether you're an esports organization, a direct-to-consumer product business in esports, or just a solo content creator. Doesn't matter who you are, this stuff is gonna help you out big time. And the organization we're gonna be looking at today is the Atlanta Reign. I actually had their social media manager, Danny Berger, on the Esports Economics podcast about a week and a half ago, and he dropped a ton of knowledge. So we're gonna take that hour-long episode and condense it down into this 5, 10, 15-minute video. Now, the first thing Danny does really well on the Atlanta Reign social media accounts is really defining and sticking to a brand voice. Now, when you think about brand voice, the first thing that comes to your mind might be an account like Wendy's or Dunkin' Donuts, those accounts that try really hard to be snarky and funny. And when executed properly, this can actually work really well. Like, people love the Wendy's social media account, but unfortunately, there are a lot of brands that try to take this approach and don't quite succeed and come across pretty cringy, and it just doesn't really land well. Danny with the Atlanta Reign has been able to kind of take that sort of snarkier, more sarcastic approach to his content, and he's been able to do it in a way that is genuine, that's authentic, that the people that follow the Atlanta Reign enjoy. He said multiple times throughout the podcast, he's not afraid to call out audience members, to make jokes with them, to post sponsored content in the form of memes. In my opinion, as to why this works really well, specifically with this account, with the Atlanta Reign account, is because it kind of takes on the voice of your typical gamer. There's this tone of sarcasm, of joking around, of calling each other out, dark humor, but there's also this degree of respect, and Danny maintains that tone of voice in his interaction with the audience. Like I said, he's not afraid to call people out, but he also is not afraid to shout people out and positively interact with the audience. So it's that balance of the two that allows his brand voice to be so successful on the Atlanta Reign Twitter account. So the lesson for you in this situation is to clearly define that brand voice. It doesn't have to be snarky, it doesn't have to be sarcastic. There are other esports orgs that take a completely opposite approach. For example, the Dallas Fuel. They're like the most wholesome esports org in the Overwatch League, if not in the entire esports scene. So both approaches can work. The main takeaway here is to clearly define that brand voice and stick to it. You don't want to be oscillating back and forth between trying to be funny and snarky and trying to be wholesome and cute and nice. And by clearly defining this brand voice, you're going to be able to attract the type of people you want to be attracted to your organization, to your business, to your content. And you're going to be able to repel the type of people that you don't want watching your content or participating in your business or organization. So when it comes to brand voice, again, there's no right or wrong answer. You have to think about your target audience. For example, Danny's target audience is gamers. So his voice of being sarcastic and funny and kind of digging into that dark humor a little bit on the brand Twitter account makes sense because they're appealing to that audience. Whereas if you were a lawyer trying to sell your services, you wouldn't want to lean into that approach because it wouldn't really resonate with your target audience. No one's really going to want to do business with a lawyer that's trying too hard to be sarcastic. So hopefully that makes sense. And then once you kind of determine that brand voice, you want to be consistent with it. Like I said, you don't want to go back and forth between 2 different personalities like you're a character from that movie Split. You want to be consistent with that brand voice. So when people see a tweet, when people see a post, they know it's from your brand, from your organization. Also, one more note on brand voice before we move on to point number 2. Not everyone is going to resonate with your brand voice. Like we talked about a few seconds ago, the point of defining your brand voice is to attract the people you want to attract and repel the people you want to repel. There's always going to be people, regardless of how dialed in your brand voice is, how creative it is, how good it is. Not everyone's going to enjoy it. You're always going to have haters. Danny on the podcast mentioned how people would message him out of the blue saying how they hate his guts. They hate the approach the Atlanta Reign has taken to their social accounts. And
like, you're not going to please everybody. We have people who absolutely, I got the job for Reign and I got several DMs saying, you're a piece of shit person. Like, people just didn't like the org, right? I was new to it, but like whatever had happened or however the brand was interacting with those people, like I was hated. I have like a hate cult against me. It's great. I love it. I love when people hate me. It's my favorite thing.
That's gonna happen, especially if you take a more controversial approach to brand voice like Danny does with the Reign account. You're gonna run into those situations, but as long as the majority of your fan base is resonating with it and it's performing well overall, don't let that get to you. Now, if you take an approach and pretty much everyone hates it, there's no positive feedback, you might wanna kind of take that feedback and see if you can change things around a little bit. But if the vast majority of your feedback is positive and only a few people are leaving hate comments or sending you hate DMs, there's likely issues going on in their own life that are leading to those comments and DMs. It's probably not what you're doing. There's always going to be those people. So just want to clarify that. Now let's get into point 2. Now that's part 1. Moving on to part 2 is engagement. This is extremely important. If you take nothing else away from this video, take this away. You need to be engaging with your fans, engaging with your audience. If you're an esports org, engage with your fans. Post content that solicits engagement. Ask people how their day is going. Ask people what their favorite character is in the video game that your organization represents. For example, Danny does this all the time. There was a recent post where he asked what their favorite Overwatch character is. And again, in that brand voice we talked about a few minutes ago, he did in that tone, but he asked what their favorite character was, and tons of people responded. Because the people that follow the organization want to know that the organization cares about their fans. And the best way to do that is to actively engage. Now, if you're earlier on in your journey, you don't have the Twitter following that the Atlanta Reign has, a lot of this engagement is going to be proactive, engaging on other people's tweets in a productive way. You don't want to just be a reply guy, but you actually want to put some thought into the type of comments you're leaving, the type of engagement you're putting out into the world. And if you do this right, it'll actually help get more eyes on your content. So in Danny's case, he has that following of 74, 75,000 people. I think that's what the number is, correct me if I'm wrong, but he has that large following, so he can actually actively just put out a post saying, hey, how's your day? Or hey, what's your favorite character? Hey, what's this? Or other sort of engagement driving posts, and he'll get that response. If you have a smaller organization that's just starting, you're gonna have to put in that legwork up front, and eventually you'll get to that point, but don't be afraid to actively go out there and engage with fans, engage with people who aren't your fans yet, but who could possibly be fans in the future. And something you'll notice as you start to use this strategy of actively engaging with your audience, I hate even calling it a strategy, it should just be common sense at this point, but as you start to do that, you'll start to notice that some of your best performing tweets are actually replies. Again, especially early on when you don't have that massive following, when you're actively engaging on other people's content and adding valuable input to the conversation, people like it. People will retweet it, share it, just like the tweet, and you'll notice your best tweets tend to come from the replies. Now, before we get into the third component of this, if you're enjoying the video, I'd really appreciate you dropping a like down below and hit that subscribe button for new videos just like this every single Monday at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. Now, the third thing that Danny does really well with the Atlanta Reign Twitter account is kind of building out that second point of engaging with fans, like actively reaching out and DMing fans and surprising fans and making their day with like free gifts. For example, what he'll do is slide in the DMs and give away free Overwatch skins. He'll also do the same thing and give away free merch. But the point is he surprises his fans. Like that interaction may not seem like much on Danny's end. He's like, yeah, all right, here's a free PC skin code, but for that fan, that could make their day and that could solidify them as a lifelong fan of the organization. And even though it's not a retweet, it's not helping a post go viral, arguably it's even more important than that, because the whole point of having a brand Twitter account is to create lifelong fans for your brand, lifelong fans for your organization, and actively going out of your way to make a fan's day is one of the best ways to do that. So like we talked about earlier, even though he does take that sarcastic sort of dark humor approach to his brand voice, he doesn't ignore the fact that you need to make your fans feel good. And one of the best ways to do that, again, is to reach out, surprise them, make their day. This could look like giving away free in-game merch. It could look like giving away merch for your organization, a free product for your brand if you're selling a specific product. Or if you happen to be a content creator and you reach out to one of your fans, that can make their day in and of itself, especially if you're a relatively larger content creator. So don't ignore those basic things that can go a really, really, really long way. And on that, kind of going back to point number 2, simply just liking a tweet or retweeting a tweet or replying to a tweet might make a fan's day as well, especially if you're a more established organization, you're kind of bigger, you have a following already, or an established content creator. Just liking a tweet like that can really, really go a long way. I said go a long way like 3 times in the past like minute and a half, but hopefully this makes sense because it really does go a long way. So take this to heart. And also one more thing, this stuff takes time. Like these strategies work really, really well, but don't do it for a day and then complain that you haven't gained 50 followers, you haven't gained 100 followers. These strategies take time. There's no hack, there's no trick that's going to get you 1,000 followers in one day, unless you get retweeted by a massive account, then in that case, good on you, but it's not very likely. You're gonna have to put in time and effort to do these things, and over weeks, months, and years especially, you'll see that growth in your content, whether it's for an organization, whether it's for a brand and selling a product, whether it's for your solo content creation career. All these strategies, all these tactics apply, but you need to apply them over the course of the long term. Now, once you have that following, once you have that large engaged following that loves your content, that loves what you do, that supports you, and genuinely wants you to succeed, that's when you can start selling stuff like merch and products. And I actually have a video on the channel about how 100 Thieves does this really, really well, and they're able to sell out of hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of merch in just minutes. So if you want to check that out and learn how you can apply those principles to your business as well, be sure to check out the video that pops up on the screen right now. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate you dropping a like down below, hitting that subscribe button for new videos every single Monday at 6:30 a.m. Pacific time, and I will see you in that next video.